Good morning and welcome to Emerson Theological Institute at City of Light. I'm Reverend Dr. Paul Gretz, and it's a delight to welcome you to our class. This is our ongoing study of the book of the Mevo Reader. It is an incredible collection of writings put together by Neville Goddard, and you're going to enjoy all of the insights that he brings to us on the power of imagination and inspiring us to greater faith. So this is our second series of 8 weeks in the study of this book, and this is class number 8 today. We're going to be looking into some interesting symbolism that will help us understand a little bit more spiritual principles for our day-to-day journey. So we're delighted that you've joined us, and to prepare for this time that we share together, let's just allow us to reset our thoughts and just remove all distractions and cares of this world. Let's do this by taking 3 deep breaths. We're going to breathe in together. We're going to bring deeply in, hold that breath for a moment, and then release out. And as we do, let's just allow all stress, worry, and distraction to just flow out of our consciousness and reset everything so that we're open for the divine spirit to speak to us. So with that, let's everyone join together in this breathing exercise. Ready? Let's breathe in and release. Deep breath in and release. Deep breath in and release. And in this moment of silence, please set your intention for that which you desire to transpire in your life during this time that we share together. That's simply naming the desire of your heart. What's your intention? And so it is. All right, I hope you have your notes. If you do not have your notes, well, please let us know. If you'd like to have note packets for any of our classes, they can be sent out to you in advance. Our registrar, Dr. David Carter, will email them to you before each class, so you have plenty of time to look at them and get acquainted with what's being offered in our discussion today. So if you have your notes, let's take them out. Let's also take a look at our book if you have it. Let's just really dig in today because there's a lot of great symbolism for us to approach. We also want to let you know that coming up, our next class will be called, it's going to be based on the basic principles of science of the mind. Here's a wonderful workbook for us to go through, and I know you're going to want to purchase this. So if you go to Amazon, you can purchase it, and it'll be there in 2 days. If you don't have an Amazon program or you don't have accessibility to it, please let us know because we'd love to help you to make sure that you've got this study guide. This is the basic principles of science of the mind, and it is by Dr. Frederick Bales. It's this 12-lesson home study course, but you're going to find this to be so beneficial to your spiritual life. It's really going back to the basics and helping us to make sure that we've got all the dots connected, shall we say, in our study. Lots of times people jump in one of our classes and we may be a little bit more advanced, so we need to do a little catch-up work, and let's just go back to getting the basics, starting from there and really refreshing ourselves. So it's going to be a great tool for our study as we begin that next week. So we encourage you to do your job of purchasing this. It's called Basic Principles of Science of Mind by Frederick Bales. You can get some used copies, I know that, on Amazon. They're a little bit more affordable. If you're purchasing a brand new one, I think they're about $24 for the brand new one. But it's well worth it because it's got all the, shall we say, the notes that we're going to be looking at are going to be all in this book. So you want to make sure that you have it to follow along for our study in the weeks coming up. So let's dig in today in our last class on this book, the Mevo Reader, and it is beauty. It is class number 8, and it's on the chapter The Sabbath, explaining to us the whole power of rest in our spiritual life, and how important it is that we take time to rest, to Sabbath. And how is it that you rest best? You rest best when you're at perfect peace, when you are have released all stress, worry, and care. I know if you're going on vacation, you don't want to take your worries and stress with you, do you? You're going to have this wonderful vacation of Sabbath on the beach. And we know that Amy here is one of our students. She loves the beach. And as you go there, you don't want to bundle up all worries and cares and stress and take them with you. You want to release them. And you want to forget all of that to allow yourself just to enjoy the moment. So what you usually do is try to take care of all of your concerns before you leave on vacation, don't you? So you try to say, I paid all the bills. I've got everything done. Everything is complete for my Sabbath, for my rest, for my vacation. And I know it's all going to work just fine because I'm going to spend this time on vacation, not worrying about it all, knowing that it is all done. I've paid the light bill, I paid the mortgage, I've done this, I've done that. Everything's great and everything's taken care of. The dog, the cat, the house, everything is being all taken care of. So I just got this perfect peace. That's how we rest the best. So it is in our prayer life. When we have done the work of moving through knowing and feeling to the place where we come and we say, I am just at perfect peace. I already know my answer is here. And I'm living from that answer. I now rest. I now Sabbath. I'm at perfect peace. And I release all cares, stress, and worry. So with that, we dig into this chapter, which is describing exactly that through this symbolism. So it begins with rich symbolism is found in today's study, and the key to understanding the powerful teaching of ancient wisdom that's found in Scripture is really beautifully explained for us. We're looking at the passage from Exodus, chapter 35 and verse 2 in the Hebrew Scriptures. 6 days shall work be done, and on the seventh day there shall be to you a holy day, a Sabbath, a rest for the Lord. Please note that these days that we're describing of the creation are not 24-hour periods. When there is any reference to time, it's very metaphorical or symbolic, because we know that time is irrelevant in the divine. That which may be described as 24 hours may happen in 1 minute, but it may be described as a day. That which may be a day could be 100 years. Because, you see, the Spirit doesn't look at time the way we do in the physical. Just as you look in the Scripture and you'll find so many references to everything happening within 40 days. Wow, I always found this perplexing. You're telling me that nothing happens in 32 days or 26 days or 5 days? And so as we look into that, I want to let Dr. David Carter know that we're going to need notes for all of our students who are there in the room. So if you can print them out for us, that would be great. We'd greatly appreciate that. Thank you. So at this time, what we want to see is that the Bible is not talking about literal time, 40 days. And we think about, Jesus in the wilderness, 40 days. The children of Israel wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. We think of Noah in the ark on 40 days in the ark, and everything's 40. Well, that just means that this describes that the time of all things necessary to be accomplished were accomplished. So they use the number 40 to describe that, metaphorically, symbolically. So, yes, Amy, go ahead and ask your question.
Why 40?
Why 40? Many times people look at the number 40 in groups of 10. That we've gone through lots of transitions. People looked at 40 as the number of the generations, okay? So, and of course, in ancient times, 40 really was a lifespan for so many, that was your fullness of your life. So being broken down into 4 segments of 10, your birthing, young childhood, your teenage time of self-discovery, going through puberty, your time of maturity and maturing maybe through your 20s and 30s, and then a sense of maturity in your 30s to 40. And that's so sort of divided in those, that you've gone through these spans, and they describe sort of the lifetime. And as we look through that, some of us feel like we've lived 120 years because we've gone through so many series of completions, you might say. I lived in another country. I spoke another language. I lived a life, and I think, wow, when was that life? That seemed like, gazillion years ago. Was that 40 years? You might describe it so, because it was a time when I matured from a young man into a sense of more maturity, of understanding, having traveled around the world and exposed to so many different cultures and people and languages and traditions. And that was very maturing, and I completed that time and then moved on to something else. And there was a time when I was in a fundamentalist congregation, a biblical literalist, and preaching from the evangelical perspective. And I learned and I matured, and I went through those years, you may say a 40-year segment of moving from my immaturity to a spiritual maturity of understanding and learning, and I moved on. And so then there's a time when I'm here at City of Light, and we have begun a new level of understanding and maturity and advancement. And who knows what will be next? So we might look at all these different segments of our life as 40 years, or that we went from some sense of an immaturity to a maturity, having, we might say, lived a life in that context. Does that make sense? Somewhat. So it was the way a biblical writer would maybe try to explain. And really what they're trying to get across is that we don't know the exact times. We don't know the exact amount. Jesus in the wilderness, what was it? Was he there 15 days? Was he there? But they used 40 days to describe that sort of concept, that everything he did needed to be done, was done. He grew. He matured. He went through the temptations in the wilderness and the struggle, and he came out on the other side successful, having understood and gained knowledge through it all. So it was a 40-year period for them, or a 40-day period. So it was the sort of describing a period of completion that says he went from A to B to C to D. Voila, 40 days done. Let's move on. Not 40 days literally, but a time that's there. So what we want to note is that in the very creation story of 7 days, it's not a 24-hour period for each day, but they symbolize, get this, a psychological moment, a definite state of mind being fixed in mind. And that really is what describing the writers, because, let's just go back and say the Hebrew writers who were writing the book of Genesis, were they there at the creation? No. They weren't even created. So how would they know that it was a day? They wouldn't. How would they know the time? Was time even thought of and invented in that time, at that moment? So the writer of the Hebrew is saying, how do I describe this to you? And what I really want to describe is something more than a literal story. And this is, again, where we've got to let go of biblical literalism, of reading everything as if, when it says 6 days, it must mean 6 days.
Right.
We got to let that go, because it's talking about something deeper. So it's writing very metaphorically and symbolically to create, painting a picture of a deeper understanding. So what we want to understand is that what the Bible is writing, the ancient writers are trying to describe something that's going on in your life. And that's how it has life and meaning for us. Otherwise, we're just reading a history book. And I think a lot of people say, well, what do I care? Why do I care about a lot of the history? If it's just a history story, then am I just studying history? There's other things that I care more passionately about. But when we understand that it's describing our life and how to live our life, and that it becomes a psychological drama for us that we're watching that goes, oh, wait a minute, it's talking about me and what I'm going through. It's explaining my life and the journey that I'm going through on this. And it's telling me a little bit more about my purpose and how to live successfully. Oh, now the Bible suddenly has meaning. And there are far less contradictions when we try to put everything together in a literal sense. We find all these things that somehow don't connect for us. And we get confused because we're so literal about everything rather than understanding the deeper meaning. So what we find is a lot of people are looking for the literal, but it's metaphorical. How many of you enjoy contemporary art? You know, you may look at a contemporary painting and someone's going, wow, that's deep. And you're going, wow, that looks like child's play. You know, I don't get it. You know, don't you see, the beautiful mountains and the rivers and the streams all being displayed in the colors, and you're going, no, I see splotches of color and black and, blue and green and yellow and this and waves and all this kind of stuff. I'm looking like a drunk guy that took a hold of a paintbrush and went like this. And like, voila, it's a $10,000 painting. You see, those with the eye of the artist would look beyond and see what's the message it's conveying. What does it symbolize for me? So I look at art in a deep context. Now, literalists, we're going to go, gee, all I see is a lot of splatter paint, different colors, doesn't mean a thing to me. I'm looking for the literal. So what I want is an 18th century painting of a fine lady in a lacy dress sitting out on a grassy field next to a cow with a river and lots of trees and specifics and every detail painted out. That's the literal person who looking for art in that perspective. Someone else who may say, I see art symbolically and metaphorically, and it speaks to me in all different ways. Well, they're looking beyond the literal, beyond the shapes I may see in that painting. So we find the same as we go to the Word of God. We go to the Bible. We're looking deep. We're looking at this psychological drama that's being spoken of and unfolded for us through the ancient text. And it speaks to us because it's humanity. And humanity is the same 2,000 years ago as it is today. Because we're all going through the same thing like, what's our purpose? How do we manifest? How do we create a world that works for everyone and not just a few? How do we love and care for one another? How do we heal? How do we receive our perfection? And how do we acknowledge that we are successful and prosperous? How do we do this? Well, the Bible's telling you very succinctly and beautifully. But it's all covered with layers that we've got to pull back the layers to see deep. And that's where we're like, okay, well, the Bible seems like it's pretty tough. Well, it's meant to be studied. It's ancient writing 2,000 years ago. And unfortunately, we're not writing the same way today. We would be more stating the facts, and we would be more simple. But in the ancient time, that's how a lot of people viewed things, very symbolically. Now let's just go back to the ancient time. In the caves, the cavemen would try to leave messages to one another before language was even shaped and formed. So what did they do? They drew a symbol, right? And that symbol meant something. Maybe they saw a symbol of, a lion on the cave wall. Did that mean literally that there was a lion? No, it could have meant danger. Be careful. Be alerted. Be aware. There is, up ahead, there's a deep hole that you may fall into in this dark cave. You see, they were trying to communicate things, but with symbols that people of the day and age go, oh, wait a minute, lion means, watch out, be careful, because every time we see a lion, what's our first reaction? Watch out, be careful. So these are just examples of how people communicated through symbols. So as society moved on, well, they still said, let's communicate through you by painting a symbol that will help you understand a deeper meaning. So when you saw this symbol, you go, oh, I know what you're talking about. I get it. Aha, I see the deeper meaning. And sometimes it's powerful for us to learn through illustrations, right? So they would give us a picturesque illustration of a story. They would describe the story, and in the story, they would say, what's the meaning of the story? What's the deeper depth of the story? What does this story mean to you? Now, have you ever been with those people who love to go to see a movie, and after the movie, they want to talk all about it? Did you see the nuances? The writer of the script was saying this and that. Did you catch this movement? A lot of people, no, I was just watching the movie. I didn't see anything. I didn't get anything out of that. But there are those who are always looking for the deeper nuances within the writer's literary approach and creating a script that has color in it and nuances that almost suggest some deeper meanings within it. So that's the same way we're looking at the Bible. we cannot read it as a literal story without saying, I heard the story, but what's the painting saying? It's painting a picture, but what's it saying to you that is a psychological message or drama or conveying something to us about how we live as humans and how we exist? So what we find here is that these 24-hour periods were symbolizing psychological moment of a definitive state of fixed mind. So it's like, you know how in life where maybe you're thinking about something, you're thinking about your healing. And you're thinking the first step may be, well, I'd like to be healed. And that may be day one. And day two is, I really believe I can be healed. And you move to that state of mind. And that may be day two. And day three may be, I believe the promises of God are there for me. That may be day three. And day four may be, oh, I think I could apply these promises of God to my life. And when I do, I could find them at work within me. That may be day five. Is that where we're at? Now, day six may be, you know what? I think if I really took these promises to heart and I really believed them and I really embraced them, then they're mine. And I could believe that I am healed. And on the seventh day, what do? I know I'm healed. I'm Sabbathing. I'm resting. My work is all done. I've gone through the process. I've gone through the struggle. I've gone through the creative process of coming to the conclusion. Aha, I realize the divine presence of God is so generous and loving and already sees me as healed. I need to see myself as healed. And when I claim that healing in mind and in consciousness, it becomes my reality. And I now proclaim I am healed. And what do? I rest. I Sabbath. I relax. I say, it is finished. It's done. And so it is. And I can go on vacation. Why? Because I'm Sabbathing, because everything has been prepared for me. That's what the Bible is talking about. So it symbolizes the time spent in consciously defining yourself as that which you desire to be. And that's in the measure of the 6 days. It's not 6 days literally, but it's using this concept to explain to you. How many of us have gone through this time of like, I'm struggling with this problem and I want to find a solution, and that's day one, and I know there's a solution is day two, and you're like, okay, I'm just figuring it out, and you see you're going through the steps of time. You're going through the steps of coming to the final realization. And I'm going to tell you, some of us, it's taken a long time, and that 6-day period, maybe 30 years, for us to come to a conclusion, to an awakening. Okay, I knew I was gay at a very young age. I didn't want to admit it. I just kind of pushed it aside. I set it aside and said, I'm not going to deal with this. It kept rising up. There were all kinds of issues. There were all kinds of things. I thought I could bury it. I thought I could do. I was going through all of this struggle. It took me until I was 33 years old to finally acknowledge and proclaim I am gay and receive complete self-acceptance and come out. Wow, that was the struggle. It took me all that time. So my 6 days were 33 years, you might say. The 6 days being symbolic of struggle and coming through and it rising up and, oh, I don't know, and I can't believe this, and this is too hard, and I just can't believe it, and what will I do, and how will I live, and the struggles I'm going through. And then finally, on the 6th day, I said, you know what? I accept myself for who I am. And I know God loves me just as I am. And you know what I did? I Sabbathed. I rested. Because it was like, it felt so good to accept yourself and to love yourself for who you are, knowing that this is not a choice, this is just who I am. And I celebrated that in love and acceptance. And let me tell you, my Sabbath was full of giddy laughter because I was so thrilled at the moment when I actually began to love myself. because I had been bitter and angry and judgmental and critical of everyone because I was fighting this self-love and I wasn't accepting myself. Oh, but when I did, beautiful Sabbath. Oh, a Sabbath that went on longer than just one day. It was a Sabbath that just is continuing on in perfect rest. And the wonderful joy of love that flooded my life that I could then give to others. And in that change, that transition of time, I became just a new person, much more gentle and kind and less condemning, because I was no longer condemning myself. So this 24-hour period symbolizes the work of a change in consciousness. And that's the work we have to do. If you want to be healed, if you want to have a miracle, if you want to have any kind of manifestation happen in your life, there's got to be a change of consciousness. And it's symbolized by the work of creation. This creative work that's described in the creation story is symbolizing the work that we do as we try to evolve and come to this place where, like, I'm going to make that change in consciousness. And this is like saying that the life is measured not by years, but by the content of those years. Do we get that? You know? You're not saying, oh, a wonderful life is lived by 96 years. No, a wonderful life is lived by the fullness, the content, the richness of those years. So it's really not all about the number of years that make for a wonderful life. It's the content of that wonderful life. It's how many times have you been to the beach that makes for a wonderful life, right, Amy? It's kind of like, what makes life really good? It's these moments, the content you put into it. Is life just saying, I'm hoping to hold on to be, 90, and I'm dragging through life, and it's tough, and it's challenging? Or am I saying, I've had these beautiful moments, these wonderful ahas. The content of my life has been full and rich. I could transition at 50 and be happy because it was full. It had content. So that is what's being described here. This creation story is a metaphor for us, the struggles we go through, the creation that we go through to create a new thought, a new belief, to create a stronger content, a greater aha. So the true meaning of the 6 days of work of creation is revealed in the 6th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And again, if it's a joy to study Hebrew, I wish I had more time and investment in Hebrew language, of the study of it, every letter having beautiful meanings and putting the letters to create the words and the nuances that are shared are so rich. But in the 6th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, it is the Va, and it is the 3rd letter in the divine name of Jehovah. It is the Yod, He, Va, He in Hebrew, those letters coming all together to create what we pronounce in English as Jehovah, okay? But if we were in Hebrew, it would be pronounced differently, but we're using explaining it to you in English. So the word Jehovah, how did they come up with the word Jehovah? I mean, who created that? Let's go. How did we come up with the word of Jehovah? Each letter had a meaning to describe who and what God is.
How did we come up with the word God?
How do we come up with the word God? God just meaning that which is, and that's not a name, that's what God is, just that is the reference to the higher power. And so we look to this higher power, this greater power, and too often we look to it as a greater power outside of us rather than a greater power within us. And so many spiritual pathways have been trying to describe to us there's a power within. Christianity has segued away from that and say it's a power without. And so as many religions began to look to powers outside of them, they moved away from the true essence of spirituality. And what we find is that as we look at truth here and truth here and truth here and truth here, and we pull it together, we find connecting the dots, the real truth that's being expressed. So we may find that people in ancient India express God in one way. And we think, oh, that's good. And then we find Buddhists expressing God in this way, and we find ancient Jewish mysticism expressing God in this way, and ancient Egyptian truth expressing God in this way. And we put them all together. Oh, we find the intersection where they all cross, where they come together, go, wow, this is true, that is true, this is true. And we put it all together, and that helps us form a spiritual pathway. Because our spiritual pathway is not made up on one pathway. It's multiple pathways, multiple revelations. So that's why in New Thought, it's ancient wisdom. And the ancient wisdom is this collection. It's not a denomination or a religion, but a collection of spiritual teachings from an understanding from the Jewish perspective of ancient mysticism of Kabbalah or Kabbalah, from the ancient teachings of the Hindu and the Vedas. And we're putting them together and we're finding, wait a minute, how many people are saying the same thing? Oh, we're finding that the Jesus said a lot of things that people had said previous to him. He was teaching truth because truth has been around all through the time, all through the ages. It's not something Jesus made up and said, you know what, I'm thinking something like maybe, verily, verily, I say it to you, do unto others as you have them do unto you. That's a new thought I just came up with. I was hitting a pizza one day, or, I was hanging out at the synagogue, and I just thought, hey, I got this brainstorm here. It's a teaching. It's found in many religions. It's expressed in many different ways, many different cultures, even before Jesus existed. So we find this very principle that says this is truth. So when we put it all together, we're saying we're seekers of truth, not seekers of a religion or one particular pathway, but seekers of the truth that's universal, that would be represented in every pathway. So what we find here is that the true meaning of these 6 days then is found in that letter, va, means to join. So when the Hebrews look together, it's pulling together. So the Creator is joined to his creation through feeling, okay? And the times that it takes you to fix a definite feeling is the true measure of those 6 days. What did I just say? The time it takes you to get to the definite feeling that your answer is already here is the true measure of the 6 days of creation. You're creating prosperity in your mind right now, right? Okay? And when you come to the point where you go, you know what? I'm not struggling with this anymore. I get it. I am prosperous. God's intention is for me to prosper. I get it. And I suddenly start to feel it. And when you feel it, you've completed those 6 days of creation, you might say. It's symbolic. You've gone through the journey. When you get to the place of feeling, you've gone through this creative journey that's being described. You've come to this moment of great understanding and a sense of completion. Aha, I get it. What do you do on the seventh day? Sabbath. Why? Because you already know. The work is done. So the work of faith is to mentally separate yourself from this physical world and attach yourself to the feeling of the desire you want.
That I understand.
Okay. So our whole work is I'm letting go of the physical world. When it comes to our prosperity and our finances, we can look at our bank account and go, the physical world, the bank account's telling me I only have this much money. But in my spiritual attachment to the divine, I know I am blessed infinitely and I'm abundant. So I live from that abundance. And that manifests. I am now attaching myself to the state of feeling abundance, letting go of the physical. I don't care what the bank account says. I don't care what this or that says. I'm believing that God is making a way when there seems to be no way. Do you get that? That's moving from the physical to the feeling. That's what's being described here metaphorically for us in the psychological drama. How do we create? Well, the creation story is telling you how you create every day. You go through that struggle. You go through that moment, those days of believing and struggling until you come to the point where I finally feel I get it. I feel my answer is already here. And what are you called to do? Rest. And why can you rest? Why is it so easy to rest on the Sabbath? Because, well, what's happened is your period of incubating, struggling, planting seeds, shall we say, incubating it, has now been completed and it's ready for its manifestation. So this is where we understand that if we've already come to this place where we're knowing our prosperity is already here, why are we working? We don't need to work on it anymore, right? It's the same thing as you're believing for healing or a prayer to be answered, or you're praying for your loved one, and you're praying for who is struggling and going through something, and you're praying and you say, how often do I pray? You pray until you know the answer is there. Oh, okay. So I could pray once, and if I came to the feeling that the answer is already complete. Or I may have to pray 100 times till I come to the answer. Or I may have to pray 1,000 times. You see, it's only until you pray until you come to the feeling that says, I know, I have the confidence, I have the assurance, I have the faith, I believe, it is so, it is done. If you don't have it, go back to square one. Do not collect $200 and go back to go, should we say. Go back and, start all over again. You got to start, you got to keep going. And if you can't get there, go back to the first step. And do it again. If you're not there, go back again. Go back again. Until finally you say, wait a minute. I get it. The answer is already here. The answer is in my prayer. I believe it to be true. And when I start to believe it to be true, I don't have to create anymore because it's created. Why was there no creation on the seventh day? Because everything had been created. And there was the realization, it's created. And so what do? We rest in the knowing. We rest. It's done. It's finished. We take this beautiful rest. Now, man is warned that if he fails to keep the Sabbath, well, he fails to enter into the rest of God. And he will fail to receive the promise, and he will fail to receive the desires of his heart. You see, there can be no mental rest until a conscious impression is made. Do you feel it? Do you know it? Do you have the confidence? Do you have the assurance? If you do, then you rest. And that's called the Sabbath. You rest and just say, I am not fighting with this. I'm not wrestling with this. I am not worried about this. I'm not troubled about this. I'm not even concerned about this. Why? Because it's done. It's finished. And now I just rest. I go on vacation. I'm on vacation and I'm resting in perfect peace because all the labor is finished. All the work of faith has been completed. So in your prayer life, the story of creation is describing that prayer journey. You are creating, right, in prayer. You are manifesting in prayer. I am manifesting your healing. I am manifesting your prosperity. I am creating. I am facilitating it unfolding in your life. And when you come to that place where your work is done, your labor in prayer is finished, and you've come to confidence and assurance, that's what you're called to do as Sabbath. The Sabbath day can only be a day of rest if you feel, know, and believe you've already acquired your desire. And do you have a question?
So does that mean if we are doing a prayer treatment with someone that we are to feel for them, we as the praying person should feel?
The answer, yes. So, in other words, yes, when you're doing a prayer treatment, if I'm praying for your healing,
I know.
I need to feel your healing, okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Because if I'm praying and going, Ann is going to be healed. And I'm thinking, ugh, what am I saying? She ain't going to be healed. She is never going to get over this cold. She's got a bad cold. She's going to terrible. And that, okay, but I'm praying. Listen, you know, I'm praying. I don't feel it, but I'm praying it. So I have to feel it first if I'm going to do a prayer for you. If I don't feel it, then I shouldn't even be praying for you.
Okay.
And if I'm asked to pray for you, I need to come to the place of feeling, of knowing. Or my words are what? They're falling flat, right? I'm saying, because I'm holding in consciousness, she ain't going to be healed. Mm-mm. She ain't going to be healed. There's no way. Mm-mm. Yes, Ann, I'm praying for you. Nope, she's not going to be healed. Nope, she's not going to be healed. I'm praying for you. Yes, we're claiming your healing. Never going to happen. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? So if I don't do the work first in myself and say, I know, I see you, Ann, healed. I see your wholeness. I see your perfection. I see it already accomplished in you. I speak these words because I feel it first and know it. And Ann goes, I feel it too, because you've spoken that healing word for me, and you are removing all doubt and fear, and you're speaking the affirmative word, which is going forth, and it's creating for us. It's not magic. It's simply how the science of our spirituality works. And another question. It'll come to mind.
This chapter will be
great. Yes. Well, I want you to ask questions. Stop me if there's any point where you're struggling with something and you're saying, I don't quite get it.
So,
Steve.
from my understanding, you need to actually work on yourself before you work on somebody else. In other words,
yes,
they can be healed, but I need to understand that I am healed, that I am whole, that I am divine. If I don't see that with me, I can't see it with somebody else.
That's right. You can't give to someone something you don't already possess or believe. Okay? So I can't, if I don't feel abundance and I don't feel my prosperity, how can I pray for your prosperity? Because I'm saying, well, it doesn't work for me and I don't feel it. So, but I'm going to pray for your prosperity, Brenda. I'm claiming it for you, but it sure don't work for me. You see, that wouldn't have any power behind it. So yes, we need to first work on ourselves to come to this place of believing for ourselves. Then we can give the word of faith, shall we say. We can speak this word for someone else.
So could that, because I look at process, could that be part, I don't think I ever asked this question in career class, the career class we had. Could that be included as a piece of the process of praying for someone, so that you would say to them, I picture you whole and complete and healthy, and let's take a second for you to do the same, and then we'll move on with the rest of the prayer. Is that?
Definitely, because we want to make sure that we feel confident about the answer. We speak the answer for the other person and engage them in this affirmative word. So I speak for you that you are healed. I speak for you that you are prosperous.
And even when you're praying for someone, is it okay to elicit a little bit of conversation from them? Or, ask them, are you able to picture this now? Or what would be the best way for you to picture this in your mind right now? Because prayer seems like it's all the person praying and never doing any conversation.
Right. And it really should be, I speak these words for you, and I speak them in the first person.
Okay.
So I'm going to speak for you, Ann, in the first person. I, Ann, am successful. I, Ann, am achieving my degree, my bachelor's degree, and I am flourishing in wisdom and knowledge. I am feeling this fulfillment of my studies, and I'm confident in the wisdom that's coming to me. So I am speaking for you.
Okay. That, to me, doesn't seem like enough, because aren't we supposed to encourage people to go within, because that's the first step?
Yes.
And so for me, doing everything, there's some people, they just want you to do it all for them and they don't want to take any responsibility, but to elicit a portion, at least, of the prayer for them to go within.
Beautiful. Yes, we certainly want to make sure. So the prayer is not someone just doing something for someone else. And if I'm praying for you, I'm expecting you to be aligned and go within with me. I'm going within, you go within. But if I'm praying for you and you're doing a laundry list and you're out going through a recipe and you're crocheting a quilt in your mind, you're not within, okay? So I'm asking you for your mind to be with my mind. I'm asking you to listen to my words and to go within. And as I speak these words for you, because you're fearful and full of doubt and questioning, I'm going to speak these words for you. So we're going within together, and I'm asking you to embrace the words that I speak for you. My faith says, I see this, and I'm helping you with your wavering, weak faith that's full of doubt and fear, and I'm speaking these words for you to help you find within you that beautiful faith that lifts you up. So, of course, we want to make sure that everyone is gone within, and so this is the work we do when we pray together. It's really important. That's why I like to take 3 deep breaths, and I like to recenter myself. I like to bring myself into the now. We do that at every class and every setting, to bring ourselves into the moment. I think it's very important that we've done that. That's resetting our thought process. So you want to make sure that the person you're praying with is also gone within too.
Right.
Are you focused here? Are you in the now? Are you in the moment? We're going to do this work before we start praying. I want to make sure that you are conscious of the words that I'm saying. This is not a time to go through your laundry list. This is not time to go through the to-do list of the day. This is a time to be focused because you've asked me to do treatment for you. So I'm assuming you are very focused and desiring the answer. The reason you're coming to me for treatment is because you don't have the faith at this level, correct? If you did, would you be coming to me for treatment? No, because if you already had that faith, you would be what? You'd already be exercising and living as if. So the prayer treatment is to remove remove doubt, remove fear, remove all those things. So if Anne is coming to me and she's saying, pray for my healing because I'm troubled, and we're all that way. We hear the doctor say something like, this news is you're unhealthy. And our mind goes, oh, what does this all mean? And, oh, please pray for me because I'm struggling with this thought of what all it means. And what we're asking someone to do is help me, do this loving thing. Help me rise to the faith that I already know is within me. I just need that lift. So I'm going to be centered. You're going to be centered. We're praying together. I'm going to speak these words for you to help you rise up in faith believing, to claim and affirm, so that you can do the 6 days of creative work, shall we say, in mind, and on the 7th day rest. Now, do you see all the symbolism here?
Yeah.
Does that make sense for you? Everybody with me? Okay,
So
great.
it's like we're walking together.
Yes.
We're
Very good.
holding hands and walking together, which
Yes.
is really our journey with God, but
Right.
joining in that way. That's why I like a touch, because it's a connection.
Right.
I think you have to have that to connect, but okay.
Yes, I agree with you. It is wonderful to say hold hands,
Yeah.
to be in that sense of oneness in the physical as well as the mental. That's not always available to us for the opportunity, but I love it when we can. I think that's great in our prayer treatment. Good. All right. The big question is this then. In the creative journey, you're creating all this thought. You want to manifest something. Okay. You're already believing. Right now for me, my current example is a beautiful pine tree in my front yard died. It must have died this week. I didn't even know it. And it's like 100 feet tall. I mean, it is just huge. And I walk out all the time and look at my house, but I never see the top unless I really bend my head back and look at the top. It's that tall. Neighbor lady called me and she said, do you know, I think your pine tree is dying or has died. I went out to the street, had to walk across the street to look. Wow, I could see the top. You're right, it's dead. I'm concerned now. I have a dead pine tree that could fall on my house in a storm. Certainly winter ice storms, those branches are going to break off and maybe fall on the roof or windows or on someone. So I want to have this tree taken down. So I called the tree removal service, and the first guy came out and said, well, it's so close to the house and it's so tall, we're going to have to get a crane in here. We're going to mess up your lawn and your grass. We're going to make a mess of everything because we need to haul it out. It's going to cost $2,000. Whoa! $2,000 to remove one tree. I said, I am releasing the physical, and where I am right now is in this wonderful state of my 6-day creation, and I'm ready to Sabbath. Because I already said, in the right and perfect time, I know and believe that the word I'm speaking right now is made flesh. From John chapter 1, verse 14. And the word I'm speaking right now is everything will fall together beautifully, affordably, in the right time, with minimal damage to my lawn and to my house. Everything is coming together in perfect ease, and I am not worried, concerned, fretting, doubting, stressing. I'm Sabbathing. I'm resting. And so it is. It's done. It will be done. Now, I've only contacted one tree service, so I've got more tree services to do in my process and to welcome them, and looking for each and every one offering me better and better prices till the right perfect thing happens. I'm not stressing. I'm not worried. I'm not waking up and the neighbor said, aren't you scared that any day this tree will fall on your house? No, I'm not. Why? Because I know the Spirit of God is already at work. And this tree is going to come down in the right and perfect time, the right moment, for the right price. All things are working together beautifully, and I can't wait to tell you how it's all going to manifest. Dr. David has a question.
I just have a comment. So in essence, you're seeing things as they ought to be.
Exactly.
From the spiritual, not as they are in the physical.
Right. So that might sum up exactly for us that we can't Sabbath until we see things as they ought to be. And our struggle is this 6-day process, and I'm not talking 24 hours. I'm talking about a journey we're going to go through that may take us 10 years or 10 minutes, where we see things as they ought to be. Now, my journey to Sabbath happened within 48 hours. The neighbor called me, told me the tree is dying. I called the tree service, found an amount. I had my questions, and suddenly rising up within me could be concern. And I said, I see it as it ought to be. The tree is removed. All things are together beautifully. It's come down effortlessly with great ease. And I am not worried. And no harm is coming to anyone, to my home, to myself, or to any loved one around me, or to my neighbors. I know that. I know that. How do you know that? Because I'm seeing as it ought to be, not as it is, okay? So that's the journey of our life until we come through that, and I'm going to call it 6 days creation. That may be 10 years. That may be 5 minutes, whatever. It's not about time. Till we've gone through that journey, we can't really Sabbath. But when we've come to that place, then we can say, I Sabbath, I rest. For this is the moment when you can experience the perfect peace of God, the quiet of the Sabbath, the rest of your labors, the complete, the work is done. Yes, I know it is here. It is manifested. This is the mental rest I can enjoy. And we say, and so it is. It is. And
is this what Jesus did when he went off on his own to pray? This is a biblical question. But was Jesus Sabbathing? Or was he kind of angsting and praying? Or
I'm sure he went through times in prayer and then came to that place of perfect rest and peace. I think certainly we see the life of Jesus in his humanity, certainly around the story of his beloved Lazarus. And when Mary and Martha called to Jesus and reach out to him and send the message that Lazarus has died, Jesus is concerned, but is delayed or chose to delay. We don't know exactly all the reasoning, but he didn't feel the necessity to rush there immediately. When he got there, Lazarus was already dead and in the tomb. He wept. He wept. Now, that may be his moment of, how could this be? My loved one has died and experienced this. That could be his moment where then he has a Sabbath. And so it is. So he stops, dries the tears. Hey, everybody, let's get to the tomb. Roll that stone away. And Mary and Martha, whoa, no, he's been dead in the tomb for days. His body's stinking. You ain't going to open that up. And Jesus has this confidence in his Sabbath rest, his Sabbath mindset. It says, I'm resting. I know all things are coming together for good. And he speaks the word, Lazarus, come forth. And Lazarus does. It's this beautiful illustration for us that, yes, this would be what Jesus is doing.
I love that Jesus wept. What was that Bible verse you gave to me about those that have tears or something come to joy?
Right.
That, I didn't know Jesus wept.
They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength and rise up as wings on wings of eagles.
Right.
There's a beautiful passage. The tears that we share can be tears of joy for those who mourn as we come through this process. Yes, beautiful passages of comfort for us. So what we find is that we see this is taught in the example of Jesus' crucifixion. Let's go back to this and let's see, here's another metaphor that's speaking to us. And I love when story after story complements each other. Why are they complementing each other? Because it's constantly repeating and telling the story in a different way, right? So you can get it. If I said 2 apples and 2 apples equals 4 apples, and I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to say it differently. I'm going to say 4 trucks, 2 trucks, and 2 trucks makes 4 trucks. That's another example. Or I'm going to say, wait a minute, 2 oranges and 2 oranges now equal 4 oranges. I'm saying the same thing. I just changed the elements of the story, right? So that's the same thing we're finding out through Scripture. Reinforcing the psychological drama, telling the story over again for us to finally get it as we define new characters or new elements within the story. Now we see this taught in the example of Jesus' crucifixion. It was recorded that Jesus was crucified on what? The 6th day, right? And buried on the 7th day. Well, that's pretty much so rest, right? All the work is done, death. He's buried on the 7th day and resurrected on the 1st day of the week. I want to tell you this. The Sabbath or rest can be broken in our lives when that work is completed and we're moving on to another new project. So we may be resting in spirit. About my tree, as an example. I'm resting in Sabbath, but I'm at perfect peace. And I've had this perfect peace and I'm not even stressed or worried about that tree. I already see it's gone. And you know what else I see? The stump is removed. And I see this open area. I see my front yard looking just great and beautiful, the landscaping wonderful, and I see this tree already hauled away, and I'm at perfect peace. Now, I have other things that I need to manifest. So my rest, my complete peace is now broken as I begin to believe for something else. And I'm now believing for, we're working on the Wisdom Center upstairs. And we have a vision for the possibility of removing some walls of some rooms on our 3rd floor of our campus here that have not really been popular, and nobody's really wanted to utilize those rooms. It's a small, narrow hallway, and it's off the beaten path, you might say. So it's not been popular. And we decided, since we've been here 3 years and no one's really utilized those small rooms, why don't we tear all the walls down and create one big wisdom center, a large event center that we can house 50 people, and line the walls with all the bookcases, and just make a huge study center, educational center, and an opportunity on the 3rd floor for us to have a larger communal room, which we can use as we move forward. People are saying, well, wait a minute. Do we have the money for that? Yes. Well, Where? It's coming. I see it in mind. I've broken my Sabbath around my tree, and I'm already now moving into the work of the 6-day creation work I need to do around manifesting the finances for this Wisdom Center expansion. Okay? So this is an example where you work on something, you come to a conclusion, you rest, then you may break from that rest and start working on something else. Come to a conclusion, rest. And then you may break from that rest and work on something else. So people may say, well, can't I just Sabbath the rest of my life? Well, because this creative evolutionary process is always going on with our life, there are always going to be new challenges to cause us to grow and expand that will awaken us from this rest to now go again and enter into the creative work again. So I'm entering into the creative work of saying, I'm believing, I see the walls coming down. We called the demolition person yesterday. We're waiting for his bid. I know the bids are going to come in just perfectly and wonderfully for us. I see us having the finances. I already see the walls coming down, and I've got a visual of what this grand room looks like. The Wisdom Center expanded, lined with all these wonderful resources, bookcases all around us, and us meeting with a class session right there in the midst of it. I see the windows overlooking the front entrance of the church. I see this large expanded space right off the elevator, easily accessible. I've got a great vision. I see it. And I'm holding that in mind. I'm doing the work, and I will Sabbath when I've come to that place to say, it is so done. I will Sabbath. I will rest on that prayer issue, knowing it's done. And then I'll take on another one. Okay? So what we see here is the example of Jesus' crucifixion. He was crucified on the 6th day, buried on the 7th, and resurrected on the 1st day of the week. So we see the work of becoming, believing it is finished, in being buried, resting on the 7th, and then beginning a new thing on the 1st day of the week. So this cycle goes on. It's not like we just, hey, I just rest on everything. But we need to resurrect the faith and exercise the faith again for new things. Maybe you are believing for a new car, and that's accomplished. Well, then it's time to believe for maybe something else, health and wholeness. Or maybe you're believing for your success, or you're believing for a loved one's wonderful blessings. Whatever it may be, but there's always going to be something in the journey of our life that's causing us to expand and grow. And
so we are not creating while we are Sabbathing. Sabbathing is Sabbathing.
Yep.
And when our Sabbathing is finished, then we create after
Right.
that. We're not resting thinking, well, when I go home for vacation, I'm going to, buy a
Right.
new washing machine and paint a picture of a tree. And
that's not resting, is it?
No, really, no.
Yeah, then it's adding more stress and worry to your life because you're thinking about all those things.
Yeah.
So Amy, when you go on your vacation, don't even think about anything other than us. Yeah, think about us, okay? Would you? Yeah. But my point is that just relax. You're going to the beach. Just dismiss all other things. Listen to the waves. Just chill. Just be there. That's called a Sabbath. That's why in the literal church environment, we always said, on the Sabbath, you don't cook. You don't buy. You don't go to the store. In the old fundamentalist church, we didn't do anything. I remember as a child, my family never purchased anything on the Sabbath. That was the Lord's Day. And I can remember as a kid going with a neighbor boy who said, I'm going to the dime store, come with me. You're going to buy? You're going to spend money on Sunday? I can't do that. I mean, I never heard of that. I was like shocked to see someone let their kid buy something, even if it was candy, on Sunday, because it was a day where you don't work. You don't do anything. You just rest. So Sunday was, you go to church. Like that wasn't a lot of work, but preacher's kids, but you went to church to rest in the Spirit, and you took a nap, and friends would say, oh, come out and play baseball. My mother and father said, you can't do that on the Lord's Day because we just rest. We renew, okay? And I love some of those aspects in some sense, but it was a little bit too literal. What it's talking about is just rest in spirit. So there would be, I can remember someone inviting my brother to go fishing on Sunday. Not on the Lord's Day. And my brother would say, but that's how I really rest. I cast my rod out. And in the stillness out on the lake on that boat, I'm at perfect peace. So for each and every one of us, you see, there's all these different ways that we may look at what rest is. But in the spiritual context, what really rest is to not stress, not worry, I'm not worried about my tree. So I'm resting on the subject of the tree removal. I don't have another thought about it. It's done. Now I can move on to the next one. Something else, and that's like the wisdom center. And as I'm moving to that place of complete confidence, all things are working together for good, and I know all that I need, and I have all the bids in, and I know exactly what's coming together. We present this, and then we just know we can rest. Sabbath. All right. Yes, Steve has a question.
This society has gotten to where it makes people half stress the way of life.
Yeah.
In other words, if I'm not stressed out about something, I'll get stressed even more. There's got to be something I got to be stressed over. What do you do with that?
I know, you are so right. Our world is like a rubber band pulling tighter and tighter and tighter. The tension is there. And it seems like that's just our norm, that we live in a level of tension, that our world is so full of, and that's why it's so important that we take this time out to do mental Sabbath, that we rest. We rest from all of our worries. We rest from all of our stress. And how do we rest best? When we've come to the place where we know that we know that we know it is done. It's finished. And we don't worry anymore. And we've got to have a Sabbath day. We've got to have a Sabbath moment. We've got to have a Sabbath mentality. We've got to have a Sabbath every single, maybe daily within our lives. A moment of rest from all the stress and worry, fear, and please, by all means, maybe in that moment of rest, don't add the news. Don't add the internet. Don't add telephone calls and conversations when you're resting, because they're going to pull you out of that rest, right? And add more stress and tension to you. So I'm really advocating for you this, when you set aside a time, and that's why a time of beautiful meditation, time of prayer, time of devotion is really important within your life. Even during the course of the day, I highly recommend if you just set aside 10 minutes and just say, for the next 10 minutes, I'm not answering any phone calls. I'm not talking to anyone. I'm not taking any text messages or receiving any emails. I am just simply going to be resting in the Spirit, resting and renewing. How important it is. So what we find here is then, it was the custom of the Jews to have someone released from prison on the feast of the Passover, a prisoner. So a beautiful act. On Passover, it was like a pardoning, setting free. What did it symbolize? What the Passover is all about? The Passover is the story of the children of Israel coming out of Egypt, being liberated, set free from slavery. And that's being celebrated in the Passover feast. Okay? So then when we understand that, we're understanding why it would be a tradition to say we're going to liberate a prisoner as our tradition in Jewish custom. So it was there that they were given the choice by those in a political governing power to say, do you want Jesus or do you want Barabbas? Well, the people made the choice. They chose Barabbas. In this story, what are the metaphors here? But Barabbas symbolizes a thief. He was a thief. And what is the thief in our greatest scenario of life? In our scenario, what's the great symbol of a thief? It's problems. What are problems doing? They're stealing your peace. They're robbing you of your contentment. They're robbing you of all this kind of stuff. If you go on vacation, and we call Amy up and say, Amy, we want to tell you there's been a storm and the roof blew on your house. What are we? A problem, disturbing her beautiful contentment and her time on her beach. Now we've just dumped a problem and we robbed her perfect peace, haven't we? No, we're not going to do that.
Good.
And because that's not
any bad news.
That's right. Nothing's going to happen while you're on your vacation on the beach. So what happens is Barabbas symbolizes this thief that is your present conception of yourself. That present conception of yourself is the problem. You're thinking, I'm poor. I'm thinking I'm not whole. I'm not healthy. I'm separated. I'm not loved. I'm a failure. What is that doing? It's robbing you. Barabbas then is the thief. And what is the thief of your peace and perfection? Is your state of mind that you're thinking right now around being a problem. I don't have. I can't do. These are the things that's symbolic of a Barabbas. Barabbas then is the problem in your life and the barrier that is robbing your great success. So what you do is you take your attention away from the problem, take your attention away from Barabbas, and what happens? You will free yourself from the problem. Just know that every problem reveals its own solution. What does that mean? It means this. Every problem reveals its own solution. What's the problem? I'm poor. Well, what's the solution? Abundance, right? What's the problem? I'm sick. What's the solution? Health, wholeness. What's the problem? I don't feel loved. What's the solution? Loving others, loving self-acceptance, feeling God's love. You see, every problem is going to reveal the solution. So you're like, I don't know what the answer is. Wait a minute. What's the problem? You know what the answer is. What would resolve the problem? Okay? So just know that it's there, so don't worry about the how. Simply rest in the knowledge that it is well, it is finished, and above all, Sabbath. Rest from doubt, worry, fear, or any concern. And this attitude of it is so sets you free, and you will be free to receive the desire of your heart. Everyone understand the chapter on the Sabbath. Does that make sense to you? Yes. It's symbolically describing to you what you need to do in your prayer life as you are manifesting your highest and best. As you're looking for, seeking the answers that you so desire, you are now setting yourself free from the problem and welcoming the solution. And as I welcome the solution, I live in the fact that I know, that I know, that I know. It is done. It's all resolved. And now I'm free and liberated, and I can rest at perfect peace. Let's go on to our next chapter, which is entitled Healing. Now, the formula for healing is found in the book of Leviticus. And you may go, really? I didn't see that there, but here's the beautiful symbolism of Scripture. Let's look at this passage and in Leviticus when it describes a healing formula for us. It says, then shall the priest command to take for him, that is to be cleansed, for the person who's desiring to be cleansed, to bring 2 birds, alive and clean. And the priest shall command that one of the birds be killed, and for the living bird, you shall take that living bird and dip it in the blood of the bird that was killed. And he shall sprinkle upon him that is to be cleansed from leprosy, the person who is to be cleansed in healing. Sprinkle on him 7 times, and shall pronounce him clean, and shall let the living bird loose to fly away, to go into the open field. Now, you're saying to me, wait a minute, how is this a formula for healing? I don't want to kill any birds. Well, let's just say it would be silly for us to take a literal application of this story. It would be actually stupid and fruitless for us. I'm not advocating you go out and kill a bird to be healed. That's not what the story is saying at all. But describing for us a beautiful metaphor of the spiritual journey of our life. So let's break it down. The bird symbolizes an idea. Okay? How do you describe an idea? How would you, if I say, describe an idea to me, what would you say? A light bulb. Okay, that's a good one. Another one might be, well, it flew into my mind. I had this, it just flew in and it landed, didn't it? Oh, I got this, like a flight came to me. A thought came to me. It's just like a bird landed, you know? When Jesus
in your head.
Okay, because if I was writing 2,000 years ago and I said, Amy, I want you to know an idea is a light bulb. 2,000 years ago, what's a light bulb? We've never seen a light bulb. So you can't use a light bulb to describe it. So what would you use 2,000 years ago in Palestine or in ancient Egyptian areas? What would you use to describe? You couldn't use a light bulb, so you'd say an idea is what? A bird. Because what? It flies in. It comes to you, right? All of a sudden you're drawn. It's like it flew in, and it's just like, oh. I like air flight, right? So that would be best to describe an idea. Does that make sense to you? You can see how thousands of years ago people were looking for an illustration of what an idea would be. So you've got a bird. Now he's suggesting two birds, or these are conceptions or ideas. The first word is your present conception of yourself. That's the problem. Okay? Bird number one represents the problem. Bird number two represents the answer. Okay? So what's the priest saying? If you want healing, you take bird number one, the problem, and let's kill it. And drip the blood on the answer bird, shall we say. Okay? It's a metaphor. It's all symbolically. Simply saying that, remember, every problem presents its own solution, so we know that. So you got the problem, we've got the solution. So take that first bird, and by killing it, you're dripping the blood. It's all symbolic. It's metaphorical. So wouldn't we do it? Because in Scripture, this blood is symbolizes our consciousness. Consciousness, that which flows through us, right? Because what are you? What's keeping you alive? It's consciousness, right? It's mind. It's consciousness that when you die, what happens to your body? It's going to be buried or cremated. It's going to rot. But what transcends to the next life? Your consciousness. That's your life force. And these words are described in so many different ways, so they're using another way to describe that which is flowing through your body is a life force, and we look at it as blood. But what really is flowing through your body is consciousness. All right? So what you're going to do is kill the bird, kill that thought, kill that problem thought, kill that consciousness, and dribble that problem thought on the answer. Okay? So turning your attention away from the problem is equivalent to exacting the blood from the bird. Okay? That's what it's symbolizing. I got the problem, I got the answer. But I'm focusing on the problem, but I'm going to kill the problem, and I'm going to put that consciousness on the answer.
The blood is like the life force.
Right. And what is the life force in you but consciousness? That's what you're moving in consciousness. In him I have my being. I move, I have my being, as Scripture says. It is this consciousness. So turning your attention away from the problem is equivalent to exacting the blood from the bird, and by removing your attention from any state, you've drained the lifeblood from that state. Here, let me tell you this. Drain the life out of your problems. Drain the life out of your problems. Because you keep putting life into the problems. Oh, here's the problem, here's the problem, here's the problem. I got to worry about the problem, I got to stress about the problem. What are you doing? You just keep pumping life into the problem, right? Then when you say, wait a minute, I'm just going to drain all the life out of the problem, well, it's dead. And what have I got? I got the answer. That's where consciousness has moved from problem to answer. Yes, was there a question over here?
Just going to comment.
Comment.
Yeah. This kind of reminds me of the previous lesson about the story of Isaac, Jacob, and Esau.
Yep.
Esau being the problem, and he sent the problem away, sent him hunting, and then that which he desired, which was Jacob, received the blessing, meaning the desire was fulfilled in Jacob.
So what are we discovering? Same story, same analogy,
Yeah.
new characters.
Yeah.
Trying to reinforce for us
The
simple
lesson.
biblical truths. You're going to find it over and over and over and over again until you get it. Until we get it. So we're going to change the story. Yep. So it's like me telling the story of Cinderella. And instead of Cinderella being three stepsisters, or one of three stepsisters or in the family, maybe I'm telling it's, It is a wonderful Hispanic family, and it's Cinderfella, not Cinderella. And I changed the characters a little bit. And he's feeling left out with his other two brothers, you know. And there's a chance to go play pro football. And the other two get to be chosen, but he's left behind. And he wants to go play pro football. You see, I could change the story and change the characters, but I can still have the same story. Do you get that? So what we find is the same teaching over and over again, reiterating some spiritual truth for us live. Now let's move on real quickly. Oh, yes, Steve. Good question.
So you're saying kill the problem, but it's not, the answer's separate from doing that. Is that what you're saying? Because
yes.
You know, I'm used to thinking that the answer is what you use to kill the problem.
Well, what really is to really embrace the answer, one must remove the consciousness from the problem to the answer. And that's what's being symbolized here. Remove the blood from the first bird, put it on the second bird, remove our thinking, our focus, our consciousness, our constant like, oh my God, it's going over and over again. It's playing this story over and over again. The problem, the problem, the problem, the problem, the problem. Stop, kill it. Put that energy into the answer, the answer, the answer. You see? So what we find here then is that the moment your mind is fixed on the belief that you are actually possessing or expressing that which you desire, you can again rest. Now, this formula says 7 times you are to sprinkle on the answer, okay? So what are we talking about? The 7 days of creation. Do the work of constantly moving consciousness and then rest, okay? But if you constantly think, I'm focusing on the problem. Oh, I'm slowing it. I'm trying to kill the problem, but it's still living. It's getting away from me. Oh, I'm still trying to destroy the problem. You haven't removed all the consciousness. And it may take you a period of time to stop thinking about the problem. Move that consciousness to the answer and start dwelling on the answer. And it may take you to do that 7 times. What is 7? The number is perfect. Completion. That's what it means symbolically. Do it until it's completed. So you move my worry, stress, and fear, energy. Oh, I put so much into the problem. I'm moving it all. The answer, the answer, the answer. The solution is there. It's already there. It's waiting for me. I've moved my energy from here to here, and I'm going to do it until it's complete. 7 meaning the number of completion. That's a symbolic. So what's the story simply saying? Stop focusing on the problem, kill it, move your thoughts over to the answer, let it live, sprinkle all of that thought process and energy, shall we say, put it into the answer, and let the answer fly away and soar. So you've got, remember, the bird is an idea. So what have you got? The bird, the second bird, is the answer idea, the solution. And what do you want to do with the solution? Let it fly. Let it soar. Let it go. Let it go to the highest realms. Let it just go out, and because the answer is going to move on out into the world, and it's going to manifest in wonderful ways. You got to set that answer free, right? If you want it to be yours, you've got to liberate it. So what we're seeing in this formula is this for a formula for healing, a formula for manifestation,
Forgiveness.
formula for forgiveness. Stop focusing on the problem. That's what it's simply saying to us. Kill it. In other words, kill the energy. Just, don't feed it anymore. Oh my Lord, how many times have you seen, people are part of the problem, and they keep enhancing the problem and making the problem even greater. And all they can do is talk about the problem. I would say, stop. What's the solution? Put all your thinking energy not on the problem, but into the solution. And if people stop talking about the problem, but everyone starts saying, what's the answer? What's the solution? Wouldn't it be amazing how solution-oriented our culture could be? But unfortunately, our culture is very problem oriented. We focus, we're stuck on the problem, and we don't think we have an answer. But if we put all the energy into the second bird, put all the energy into the answer, what would happen? And you do that completely until you've given full life and full consciousness to the second bird, full life to the answer, full life to the solution. What will happen is you set it free and you allow it, let that bird fly away. Now, the formula is, if you impress upon yourself the fact that you are that which you desire to be, I desire to be healed, I desire to be prosperous, you hold it in your mind until your mind is stilled, quiet, resting in the belief that it is so. Living then in this fixed attitude of mind, this fixed, not wavering, fixed. Okay? I already know. It's done. I'm living in consciousness that you are not that which you formerly were, but you are that which you desire to be. And that is the bird set free. Okay? So what we find in both these chapters is a beautiful story for us, metaphorically, of how we struggle through life, maybe in the 6 days of creation, but when we get it, we rest. And that maybe we struggle through life, and we understand the real formula is stop focusing on the problem, embrace the solution, and put all your energy into the solution, and you set it free. Wow. Now, 2,000 years ago, a lot of people understood these simple lessons and metaphors. They understood the deeper meaning of the stories. Today, we're trying to bring them to life for you thousands of years later. You might understand the power of metaphysically understanding Scripture and the depth and the true meaning it has for our lives. I'm glad you joined us today for our class here at Emerson Theological Institute at City of Light. I'd love to hear what your takeaway is. If you really grasped and understood this class session, I'd love to hear about it. Or if you've got questions, please let me know. You can respond right now if you're watching this live and just type in maybe what your takeaway is, a comment, or one of your questions. And while we're waiting for you, we're going to go around our room here to talk with some of our students who are present with us in our classroom. So let's go over here and we're going to start. Well, let's start with Steve. If you want to share with us, please, what's your takeaway? What spoke to you today?
What we just talked about just a moment ago about the problem and the solution and how we need to just drain the life force out of the problem,
yeah,
and then put it on the solution instead of waiting for the solution to finally manifest and think, okay, now I can kill my problem. But would it be accurate to think the solution or the answer will not manifest until we kill the problem?
I believe yes. That it would be a challenge until we've released the problem fully. We're never going to really embrace the answer because part of our energy is over here where we're trying to go over here. So we're, this pull of there's still a problem, there's still a problem. You got to kill it. Yeah. That's why the analogy wasn't like poke the bird, drain a little bit of blood, let the problem live. No, it's kill it, kill it, kill it. So there's no life in it. The same thing with the problem. You've got to let the problem go. Kill it, kill it, kill it. Don't put any more life. Don't put any more consciousness in it, okay? Set it free to the sense of that, it exists no more. And then you move on. Put all that power, all that life, all that consciousness, all that energy. Put it into the second bird, which symbolizes the answer, okay? All right, good, thanks. Brenda, what's your takeaway?
It's something that I do, and it works for me when I get all involved in a problem, and I see that that's what I'm thinking about. I'll take a day off, and it's sort of a spiritual day. I don't do anything but just sit around and think about it. And then, after I've done that, I've done my part because I'm trying to decide what I could do. Well, if I can't do, then I leave it to God turn it over to God, and I know it's done because I get a relief or release of the stress.
A Sabbath.
So that
Yeah.
I know that I might not know how this is going to end, but I will know, and I will have the knowing when it's time, and I'll know how to do it.
Beautiful. Exactly. Putting that teaching to work and just allowing it, I know when I know I can rest, and I know it's all going to come together beautifully. Excellent. Let's go to Dr. David Carter.
My takeaway is when I see things as they ought to be instead of as they appear in the physical, I'm going through the process of creation. I'm taking my mind off the problem, and I'm really letting it go, and in the process of releasing it and knowing that it's gone and that things are appearing as they ought to be, and they literally are there, then I know that I Sabbath.
And it is done. It is such a beautiful place to say, everything's done. I can go on vacation and I can be at perfect peace. Everything's done. I can rest. Everything's done. And I'm at just not worried, not stressed, not even concerned. It is all working together beautifully and it's completed. And you know what? As we live that mindset, it begins to manifest. It begins to come to us. We draw that which we believe to be true. It attracts to us. It is just this wonderful power of the universe that comes that when you hold in mind something, it's going to produce in like kind. It's going to it'll manifest to you. It's not magic. It's how the law of the Spirit works. Again, if you're holding in mind the first bird, the problem, and you keep letting it live, that's going to be your challenge. And that's why the analogy was we've got to take the life force out of the first bird, sprinkle it onto the second bird, and set it free. Okay, let's go to Anne. What's your takeaway from today's class?
I'm not going to blood.
Okay, all right.
But what I like is pray till you come to the feeling, but keep going in Sabbath. And I know that medically in terms of my knowledge of the human body, you don't problem solve, you don't create until you are out of that stress state.
Oh,
and that,
so true.
Came to front with my energy healing, because one of the first steps is to check your polarity, which would be the law of repulsion, which is conflict. And once you can achieve relaxation and help the person let go of some of the energy, and you take over healing yourself, that's your Sabbath, and that's your problem-solving stage.
Beautiful. Excellent.
Woo.
I love that, Anne. That preaches. All right, great. Excellent. I love that. I hope you're able to hear that on the camera. I hope you're able to pick that up. All right, let's go to Amy. Speak up real loud, and the camera will pick you up.
Glad these 2 chapters are over. I was thinking about all the times in the Bible that they're sacrificing the finest goat and all this jazz. So what does all that mean? Which I don't even want to know at this point. But I did like this one sentence. The work of faith is to mentally separate yourself from the physical world and attach yourself to the feeling of the state you desire, which is just more reinforcement of, using the power of your subconscious mind.
Right. And that's the whole analogy of the 2 birds. You just summed it up. So if you want to know the 2 bird story from Leviticus, what that means, you just said it. It's in that sentence. And the 2 bird story is given to help us get that, but you've already got it, so you can let go of the 2 bird story.
Good.
Because you've already got it.
I don't like that story.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Nobody likes to hear stories about killing a bird, a sweet bird. But
that's all the symbolism, blah, 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 blah. And I'm, finally beginning to get what subconscious mind is. So you start throwing all this in there for me.
Right.
And it's like, you can see my mind flying away.
That's that bird.
Yeah. Bye, birdie.
All right.
Bye, birdie. Exactly.
Good. Right.
Yeah. But yeah.
And you can see where, we're looking at symbols that helped people comprehend something thousands of years ago. Today, in this generation, we'd probably use some totally different symbols.
Yeah.
But we would paint word pictures to help illustrate this is how it works, but we would speak in a totally different way than maybe what they did in the ancient time. So again, when we think of metaphorically, if a bird stands for this idea, what do we find? That when Jesus' baptism, the heavens opened up, and a dove, symbol of peace, descended upon him. The idea, the consciousness, the awakening that Jesus had is being symbolized in this word picture. We don't believe that the clouds opened up and just in that moment a dove kind of landed and, dropped down on his head, without pooping on it. That's not it. After all, he was just baptized. He just came out clean out of the water.
Yeah.
It's symbolic, telling us that this idea came as Jesus had this self-realization. This is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased. And let me tell you, we need to have that moment, each and every one of us, that we are the beloved Son. We are the beloved child of God. And God is pleased. And that's the beginning of Jesus' great ministry, was understanding that he was the beloved. And when we understand that, that begins as a starting point for each and every one of us. Norma, what's your takeaway from today's class?
Well, I like the part about Barabbas symbolizing the thief that is our present consciousness. Because I think most people have a concept of themselves that is less than they would like for it to be.
The Barabbas consciousness, less than what we'd like to be.
That's the first time I ever understood that whole part about the crucifixion.
Very symbolic, very metaphorical of so much going on within our lives, of the Barabbas being the problem, and the problem being that which we see, how we see ourselves as less than. And when we see ourselves less than, it robs us constantly. And
the fact that everyone voted for Barabbas and not Jesus to be relieved from the crucifixion tells us what the mindset of the society around Jesus was at that time.
So the mindset of race consciousness of our world is simply, we're always saying, give us the problem, give us the thief, give us the low self-esteem, give us this kind of, we want to live in victimhood, we want to be, rob us of our highest and best constantly. That's the consciousness of the world. Yes, great.
I'm entitled to that.
Yeah. Yes. All right, David.
Okay, I'm confused. I thought the meaning of the people saying, give us Barabbas, is to release the problem, release the thief. Because Barabbas is the thief that robs us, it's our present state of consciousness. And saying, give us Barabbas, that means release the thief and keep the consciousness of the good, the consciousness, the awakening that we want, but we release the thief.
So here's the example, though, that could be applicable, but what we're really looking at is Barabbas was being set free to Rome. Jesus was not.
Right.
The choice is, who are you setting free to roam in your life? The thief that robs you, the problem, to run rampant in your life, liberated and to run free, or the Savior, Jesus, who embodied the solutions, the answer, the liberation. Unfortunately, the people chose, liberate the problem, set it free to run rampant through society and through culture. Because that's really what we want. We love victimhood. We love to be treated as we're less than. We love to embrace this because that's where we are as humanity. And when the answer of to be set free should have been Jesus. So they were the release part you're getting, but the release to do what? To run rampant. So in other words, Barabbas was set out of prison to move amongst the crowd. You're free to go. Do what you want. But you're free to continue robbing, is what the analogy is. So if the choice is solution or problem, and you're calling out, give us the problem, give us the problem. Okay, we're going to set the problem free for you to go.
Okay, because I thought it was releasing it as in taking your attention
Getting away from it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. In this analogy, it's just setting it free to roam. Yes. All right, let's go back here to Anthony. Can you shout real loud? Tell us what your takeaway is.
Basically going on with everyone else has said. So one last word talking about you are the bird set free, kind of taking away that the two birds, the problem, represents the first verse, well, Barabbas and sin free, but Joel, as an analogy goes, the second verse, not only that answer that we wish and desire to be, but as well as just us and our identity. So, in the last sense, it's saying you are the bird set free, you were basically the answer. We'll turn away from the problem as well.
Excellent takeaway on the analogy of the two birds and not focusing on the problem, but the solution. Excellent. Thank you, Anthony. I appreciate that. Great. Thank you so much. Is there anyone else in our classes that are joining with a comment? If not, thanks again for being part of us. We want to remind you that if you're joining us next week for our class, the class is on the Basic Principles of Science of Mind by Frederick Bales. You can find this book on Amazon and have it delivered to your home, and you can begin reading. You'll enjoy this as a study guide. It is going to be the source of all of our notes for the classes. So you may not be receiving notes because you'll have them already in the book. So we're going to go chapter page by page, pull out some notes and comments that you can highlight or mark yourself for greater comment on later on. So make sure you picked up your guide to this class, The Basic Principles of Science of the Mind. I'll hold it up once again for you, and you can make sure that you get this through Amazon.com and have it delivered to your home so you're prepared for the study along with us. Thanks again for joining us. And if you enjoyed this class and the discussion, you enjoyed the wonderful insights that have been provided, and you found some great aha moments, why not offer a gift, a donation to say, in gratitude, thank you for Emerson Institute. Thank you for this class. You can go to our website at www.cityoflightatlanta.com. And there you can make a donation. Click on that donation button and offer your gifts. I so appreciate it. Thank you for your generosity because it enables the Emerson Institute at City of Light to continue to flourish. We're growing and reaching people all around the world with these classes, and we're delighted that you're part of that. And as you give and share in your generosity, you enable us to continue this great work of offering spiritual insight, spiritual truth to those all around the world tuning in. God bless you. I'm Reverend Dr. Paul Gretz. It was great to have you with us in our class today, and I'll look forward to seeing you on next Thursday at 10 a.m. or joining us Tuesday night at 7 at the same location for our classes. And of course, we'd love to have you join us Sunday morning, 11 a.m. for our Sunday celebration service. God bless you. Have a great week. I'll look forward to seeing you soon.